What is up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and today welcome back to another episode of Shadows and Pretties. Now, this is episode 16, and I was gonna put a poll asking, what episode I should do next, but I decided, what, I'll pick what I want, and then you guys can have something at least to enjoy. Now, with that being said, today I am going to do another episode of Shadows and Pretties called Sleeping Beauty. Now, yet, we're going to talk about the Disney movie mainly, but we're also going to be doing the Charles Perrault version of Sleeping Beauty a little bit. But the dark origin behind Sleeping Beauty is pretty dark and very disturbing, like pretty dark and disturbing, not as bad as the Disney one. And I'm surprised some of the stuff that Disney didn't make it into the film for obvious reasons, but let's just sit back and enjoy. Now, Sleeping Beauty came out in 1959, and it was one of the musical fantasy film produced by Walt Disney, based on the Sleeping Beauty, dark story by Charles Perrault. And of course, it was the 16th Disney animated feature film to be released in theaters in July of 1959. So most people who were born in the 50s probably have seen this in theaters, but I don't know. But you guys can let me know if you're born around that time. Of course, this was the last Disney adaptation of a fairy tale for some years because internal mixed critic reception and other performance at the box office. Of course, the studio did not return doing this kind of stuff until The Little Mermaid came out after Walt Disney died in 1966. So, of course, we're gonna definitely dive into the Disney movie. Now, they have really good voice acting and stuff like that. So, before I get to the dark origin of it, I'm gonna explain, what Sleeping Beauty is, like the Disney one. If you guys don't remember the movie, the Disney movie, I'm gonna sit here and basically I'm gonna sit there and, kind of explain. Now, I do know there was like a live action, reference or that because of course Maleficent the Sorcerers of All Evil and the first Maleficent movie is kind of like of course you could just say it's kind of a live action adaptation or whatever you guys want. And of course, we're just going to say right here right now that it's going to contain dark topics when we talk about the dark version of it and not the Disney one. So if you get offended by any of this stuff that is going to be said, I highly recommend you click off the video right now. Just saying, if you get disturbed or offended, just saying right now. I'm not going to be angry or anything like that, but I do understand. So let me begin with this, shall we? Of course, this is about many childless years. King Stefan and Queen Leah have a daughter named Princess Aurora, which is a holiday proclaimed to play by the homage at the princess after her christening. Aurora, however, is being betrothed to Prince Philip, the son of King Stefan's closest friend, King Hubert, who to unite the kingdoms. Now, it's just kind of similar to Swamp Princess, how, Derek and Odette were, betrothed together, but they didn't like each other because, if you see my Swan Princess, episode of Shadows and Pretties, I highly recommend you check that out if you have not done so. Okay. Now, it's kind of similar to, I guess maybe that's how they got the Swan Princess when they were making this back in the 90s. I guess maybe that's how they decided to get a little bit inspiration from. But of course, we get two free good fairies named Flora, Fonda, and Merryweather, who are the characters of Disney, and they did not appear in the Dark Origin. This was just Disney's idea, and of course, Sleeping Beauty's name was not Aurora in the Dark Origin version. Yet again, this was Disney's ideas. Now, of course, the fairies have blessed Aurora with beauty songs and respectively, but Merryweather's gift, however, was interrupted by an evil fairy named Maleficent. Yes, Maleficent. Oh my goodness. I used to think that she was a witch, like as a kid, but she's an evil fairy. So I guess some of you guys still call her witch, but that's totally fine. So of course, Maleficent gets insulted as she was uninvited, and of course, Maleficent curses the princess by proclaiming Aurora will grow in grace and beauty, but before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger and the spinning wheel, and of course she'll die. So of course the king and queen beg the fairies to undo the curse, but since they're not powerful enough, Merryweather uses their magic to weaken the curse. Instead of dying, Aurora will fall into a deep slumber, only to be broken by true love's first kiss. Of course, King Stefan orders the spinning wheels throughout the kingdom to be burned, the fairies urging, and of course that the king and queen reluctantly will allow Aurora to live with the fairies in a hidden cottage in the forest. Yeah, I guess they kind of get that idea from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So yeah, that's kind of similar to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, except it's a little different. Which of course I talked about that in my last episode. So if you want to go check it out, feel free to. Aurora, renamed Rose, I'm just gonna call her Aurora because, that's how her original name was, grows into a beautiful young woman. On her 16th birthday, the fairies ask her to gather some berries so they could prepare a surprise party. However, Aurora befriends the animals of the forest and sings them a song, Once Upon a Dream. Of course, Philip, now a handsome young man, follows Aurora's voice and instantly struck her by her beauty and grace, just like Swan Princess. I guess maybe that's how they got some of the Swan Princess and other people stuff. So yeah, I just thought I would let you guys know. Now we of course do. She's instantly startled and is not allowed to talk to strangers, but she and Philip fell in love because that's the prince that she was betrothed to years ago. She invites him to meet their godmothers at the cottage that evening, but of course, meanwhile, Flora and Merryweather they're arguing about Aurora's gown. Of course, Maleficent's raven then learns about Aurora's location, and of course, Aurora is thrilled to tell her guardians that she's fallen in love, but the fairies finally tell Aurora that she's a princess is already betrothed to the prince, and must never to see that man again. Of course, that's actually Philip. Of course, Aurora cries because, she's heartbroken because that prince is actually Philip and she doesn't know that. So basically, we say that she tells her father that Philip's father tells her father that he wishes to marry the peasant girl, despite this betrothal to the king and queen Hubert, as they're left devastated. Of course, the fairies take Aurora to the castle to wait her for her birthday celebrations to unite with her parents. Maleficent appears and lures Aurora into a dark room, and of course she touches the spinning wheel, and of course Aurora pricks her finger, falling into a deep sleep. So the three fairies place Aurora on a bed in the highest tower and cast a powerful spell on everyone in the kingdom, causing them to sleep until the spell on the princess has been broken. So, of course, over the sleeping conversation, Prince Philip is the man that Aurora fell in love with in the forest, rushes to find him, but Maleficent kidnaps him. So she shows Philip that the sleeping princess says Aurora says she'll lock him away until he is an old man at the verge of death, and when she will only release him to meet his true love, who have not aged in a single day. So, of course, the fairies rescue Philip, arming him with the magical sword and shield of truth and shield of virtue. Of course, Maleficent gets ages surrounds the castle with thorns to put a stop to Philip. She, of course, transforms into an enormous black dragon, and they both battled until Philip throws a sword, blessed by the fairies, directly into Maleficent's heart, basically killing her. Yeah, surprisingly, Disney went that dark in that time because, it was a little violent at that scene. I'm surprised Disney did that. I'm really surprised Disney went that far. But when you hear me talk about the Dark Origins, you guys are going to be even more surprised in many ways than I can really count. Of course, Philip eventually goes to the tower and awakes Aurora with a kiss, breaking the spell and awakening the whole kingdom. So the royal couple descends to the ballroom where Aurora is united with her parents. Flora and Merryweather resume their dispute over Aurora's gown, and of course they live happily ever after. Now, what a good story, I have to say. This story was actually one of the most amazing stories I've ever seen. Now, despite the fact that this story was actually pretty good, which is awesome, I could definitely say that this story, I remember watching Disney for the first time in a while, and it's really interesting to say the least. Now, I remember seeing Disney movie as a kid, and now rewatching it, I have to say it's very different compared to the Dark Origin one. And oh my god, the dark story of Sleeping Beauty, I have to say it's messed up, but it's also very weird at the same time. So, of course, it says Sleeping Beauty, or in French or Little Bras Rose. I'm just gonna call it, the Princess Aurora, because, well, because I'm just thinking it's a little easier. Now, this one is the folktale begins with a princess whose parents were told by a wicked fairy that their daughter will die when she pricks her finger on the item, similar to, Disney version. But of course, the princess pricks her finger on the flax, and of course, in the both in Parrots and the Grimm Brothers version, and the item is a spindle, and of course, the parents rid the kingdom with all these items in order to protect their daughter. But of course, is fulfilled regardless instead of dying. As foretold, the princess falls into deep sleep, just like Disney, except after some time she's found by a princess and awakened. But of course, in Gambasha's version of Sleeping Beauty, Sun, Moon, and Talia, very disturbing, it says, Talia falls into deep sleep after getting a splinter of flax on her finger. She's then discovered by her castle and the wandering king, who gathers her fruits of love, and of course, basically has sex with her, which I'm very disturbing to say the honest, and she later gives birth to a set of twins. Now, according to Mara Tadar, that there's a second part that was been talked about, other stuff. And of course, later on we see is that the princess, of course, there's like so many other versions, but it's just really, really disturbing. Like, there are so many other versions that the story has been told, so I'm just gonna go with the Sun, Moon, Talia because it's like one of the famous ones. So later on, of course, I'm surprised none of this that I'm saying right now is basically I'm surprised none of this is like Disney didn't even bother to put this all in there. Like, I'm surprised that Disney didn't even thought of doing that. So, but I could definitely say right now is that this one there is some other versions, but I don't have really much time to go through every single one. But of course, some variations, of course, they decide to do some more adapted stories. So, of course, in Sun, Moon, and Talia, what happens is that the princess gives birth, but however, though, when the king goes to see Talia again, he goes to find that she's awake, and she's a mother of two twins. Of course, he informs her of who he is and what happened, and they end up bonding a few days as the king went back to his realm, but promised Talia that or Aurora that he will return take her to his kingdom. When he arrives back in his kingdom, his wife hears say Sun, Moon, Talia in his sleep, and of course she bribes and threatens the king's secretary of what's going on to, cook the twins, and wants to feed the king his children. Instead of cooking, of course, his wife hides them, and then she cooks 2 lambs to serve as they were the twins. So, of course, later on, every time the king mentions how good the food was, the queen replies, "Eat, eat. You're eating your own." And then later on, the king invites Talia to the kingdom and is going to burn her alive. But however, the king appears to find out what's going on with his children and Talia. He orders his wife to be burned along with those who betrayed him. Since the cook actually did not obey the queen, the king thanks the cook for saving his own children and giving him rewards. Of course, the end of this story just shows like Talia living happily ever after, or Sleeping Beauty in this case. Now, I could definitely say that this story was actually pretty disturbing. I know there's other versions of it, with involving death and stuff. So Maleficent wasn't in there, and neither was Aurora, but that's because Disney decided to make it like a little bit interesting. So that's why Disney decided to make it a little better. So I guess that's kind of reason why Disney decided to do some changing. I'm surprised everything that I said right here was not included in the Disney one. Like the other one, I'm surprised that none of it made it to the Disney movie. Like, I'm surprised that it didn't make it, that Disney didn't even bother to have any of that. I'm just glad that this whole thing just went out really well. And that's the really good thing I could definitely say. Now, like I'm going to say right now, that if you guys enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend you leave a like, hit the subscribe button down below, and let me know what you guys think. And I really have to say that the dark origins of Sleeping Beauty that I said was obviously pretty dark. And that I definitely say that the Disney one was pretty good. But however, even though it was dark, the dark origins of it, or the original Sleeping Beauty story, was messed up in many ways. Like, I could definitely say how messed up it is. And I could definitely say that it's really messed up. And I definitely have to say that it's really something right there. Now, about that, I can definitely say that this story was actually pretty disturbing in more ways that I can count. So, I guess maybe I kind of, should wrap up. Now, if you guys like this episode, I highly recommend you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys won't miss an upload. And like always, I'll be seeing you all in the next episode of Shadows and Pretties. So I will be putting a poll sometime this week about what episode should I do for episode 17. Thank you so much for coming to watch this episode, and I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.